Hey, I wanted to make a quick recap of the new update that is coming for ESO next week, as it is gonna change a bunch of things, mostly for DPS players, but also for tanks a bit. This update is focused around PvP, and overall some PvP quality of life updates, like the Televarron door being revamped, the reward of the Warsi being revamped, etc. But for PvE, the main changes are massive DPS nerf for every class besides Arcanist. This patch will have a drastic impact on raids, and will make Arcanist even more popular than it is currently, with an astonishing 55% play rate in the global raid population as of right now, and we will probably see it increase even more after this patch. So let's talk first about the two big changes. Azureblight and Pyrebrand are getting nuked. There is not much point talking about them anymore. The sets are completely destroyed, unplayable, and now Pyrebrand does less damage than Shadow of the Red Mundane and random Overland sets. If you spend 12 hours farming it in the Infinite Archive, I'm sorry for you. About Azureblight, the change is absolutely terrible for PvE, and in my opinion, the worst change they did since update 35. The set was performing really well in AoE on counter, and was allowing a lot of groups to clear content they wouldn't have been able to otherwise, but especially was allowing players to get away with classes that didn't do that much cleave. Right now, you could do Lucent Citadel, Dreadsail, Rogue of Armods, a Wither Sork and a Templar, even if all the new trials by design ask for the most AoE possible to be easier. But by removing Azureblight, as Arcanist is a class that benefits the less from it, and it already has so much more cleaves than anything else, you are literally forced to play 7 Arcanists in your group if you want something remotely close, as good and as safe as it was before, and even then it will still be worse. So this is kinda terrible for class diversity, and with the next change we will see very soon, you have now literally no reasons to bring a Sork or a Templar in your raid. You will strictly not have a slot for them anymore. You will need more arcs to meet the AoE requirements, otherwise, like the Renarchs will not die and slaughter people, the first boss arts will not die, Necromancers will not die, 𝚃𝚒𝚘𝚎𝚜 will not die, etc. Making the raids way harder. On top of killing classes viability in raids, that change is also a massive nerf to console groups, who will struggle way more than before to clear their trifectas. After that comes the Maelstrom to Edge change. It is now a 12% increase instead of around 500 flat damage buff, which is a massive nerf for a lot of classes, especially Sork, DK and Warden. To keep it simple, the way it used to work is that damage buff was calculated before any modifier, so even if your rune carver would tick for 10k on an enemy in raid, the tooltip on the actual set was still 2k, which means that the 500 damage buff resulted in an overall 30% damage boost. But with the new Maelstrom to Edge, even big abilities are kind of the same as before, and the little ones with a lot of hits such as jabs, rapid strike, rune carver, shield on Warden, etc. are all getting a massive nerf. Every class is affected negatively by this change, except, you guessed it, Arcanist. The only other class that isn't nerfed too much is Corpsebuster Necro, as it has great synergy with Plasmons and Siphon Spam, but everything else is a big rip. Just by those two changes, if you are wondering what next patch will look like, Stamsork is dead, off-meta classes are dropping even more in viability, and Arcanist, getting juiced up by the new scribing skill, is even stronger than how it was at the release. For any group next patch, it will most likely look like Arcanist player group. That new scribing skill, Banner, is a passive skill that you have to double bar if you want it active permanently, like Guard. It nerfs your sustain, and in exchange, it considers itself as self-activated every 5 seconds. So every script you apply on it will automatically fire every 5 seconds. You can make it give a champion bonus boost to your team as a first effect, so 6% direct damage, 6% AoE, 6% damage over time, etc. Most groups will want you to use the AoE banner, so Arcanist and Necros will get all the damage boosted, but you could also go with damage over time to boost your Templar's execute if your group has more than one Templar, for example. On third effect, you usually will want, as a DPS, to pick the Mage or Savagery, so you can just replace Camo Hunter with Banner without much changes. And as second effect, there is some very interesting things, notably class scripts. You can use class script on Necro, and thanks to the new Semi-spammable who create corpses, maintain the corpse stacks all the time and sit with 35k HP and 45k stamina. I tried it on dummy, and even without any external corpses, you can keep up the stacks passively. So it should be very easy in the trial, and makes you pretty much unkillable. The second very interesting application is on Arcanist, where the class script allows you to generate a crux every 5 seconds passively. This means that your rotation will be beam, flail, beam. More DCT's beaming is equal to more damage in raids, in trash, and on bosses. So far, this seems to be absolutely busted, and makes Arcanist even stronger than what it was previously, even reducing massively the flail nerf, which occurred last patch, now that you will cast it half less. In my opinion, it's not a good design, and I hate having to double bar it for optimized damage. I hope it's gonna get hard nerfed. About some more minor but interesting changes, Ghostly Embrace is getting reworked to be a 5-second dot, such as Burning Talons. To break down the skill, it is a 3-area cast, and if you don't miss it, you will always hit the first 2, sometimes all 3 on big targets, such as dragons, Thalia or 𝚃𝚒𝚖𝚎𝚜𝚝, etc. The first circle does damage and applies shield, the second circle does damage and applies the 5-second dots, and the third circle also does damage and creates a corpse. If you hit 2 circles, the ability will have the same tooltip as Burning Talons, actually a bit higher because it procs guarantee status, but in the end lower because Talons is fire damage. But if you hit all 3 circles, the ability becomes better than Talons, and the 5-second dots plus the corpse creation makes it very synergic with Corpsebuster and Runecarver. It will also make Necromancer rotation way more fun compared to before, and it makes the other, more force plasmons actually interesting. Templar charge now taunts, so if you liked to use it in trash as a DPS, you cannot do that anymore. Healers that were using it to dash on 𝚃𝚒𝚐𝚜𝚝 to reduce the boss movements cannot do that anymore either, but that's pretty funny for tanks. Some old scribing skills are receiving new additional options. Some of the good ones are Frost Knife, Flame Soul Burst, and Blade Contingency. The Shock Contingency is gonna be extremely nice for Magtalk in trash, and the Frost Knife for Magden. It is very sad that it comes in the next update, making them pretty much dead. Lotus Fan from Nightblade now applies a 5-second dot to enemies and takes every 1 second, like what Burning Talons would, which will be cool for Nightblade in trash. Cloak is now a toggle, which will consume mag as long as it's on, and will turn off when you damage something. When it disables itself, you will deal 10% more damage against monsters for 10 seconds, so it's a good pre-buff skill, especially for trash. It will also guarantee your first bow proc to crit if you fire it fast enough. Sorcerer's shield healing gets nerfed, which is a tank nerf, and doesn't really apply to DPS because you would always have a pet affected anyway. But it's actually not that much of a nerf for Sorcerer tanks, because now the shield healing will not check the Atro ultimate to work or not. So even when you are using Atro, which you do in red, your shield will heal you still. Expert Summoner passive now only takes in account permanent pets, aka the double bird ones. Same for Become Oblivion, the Sorc AI set. So if you are using Atro in trash, you will not lose the max stamina the passive gives, and the 15% damage done from the set. Which makes it the new best insert option in trash for Sorcerer, and it will help tanks with stamina management, as previously you had to take Atro into account to ensure your max stamina was always higher than max magicka. Some big Arcanist tank nerf who actually changes nothing, because you would use the shield for the 1 second portion of the skill anyway, and you can still use the other morph of the rune, so Arcanist tank is still pretty much immortal. Tarnished Nightmare now has a delay before firing, which makes it even better in trash, as your tank will now have more time to stack things inside the proc. There is new skill styles, one especially cool being the Race Against Time purple skin, but also Undo, the 𝚃𝚒𝚐𝚜𝚝, the Shield Taunt, and Force Pulse. They are adding the genning and controlling progress to a lot of base game dungeons and trial, which is a pretty nice quality of life improvement. Okay, so that's about it for me. I hope your group will not be too negatively affected by Azureblight nerf. Make sure to ask in the description if you have any questions about the new update, and to subscribe if the video was helpful. Have a nice day. See ya.